I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, and Wilton Jackson II. Welcome to episode 577 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports, for institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. Short, we just call it HBCU sports pedagogy. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is off assignment. Let's give him a hand.
Hey!
We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live. KSOE 1230 in studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Big Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing better. Enjoyed a great weekend. Had a chance to catch a few games, but it was the 35th anniversary of 2 Black 12 Strong, fall 1989, Eta Gamma chapter, Prairie View A&M University. So we had a chance to celebrate, reminisce, recall, remember, and even tell a few lies. So it was really nice, a nice anniversary. So I am doing a little bit of recovering. You realize you're not 20 or 30 years old again. So, but nevertheless, great to be back. Great to be back.
Good deal. Charles, how you doing today?
Doing well, Doc. Of course, this past weekend, I spent same time with my line brothers, 30 years in the bond. But like you said, Mike, reminisce, tell a few lies, laugh a lot. Had a tremendous time this past weekend in my homecoming. And a quick reminder, Central Time, still time to go out and vote. Mountain Time, still time to go out and vote. Pacific Time, still time to go out and vote.
Yep. Absolutely. You're in line. You know the rules. Stay in line. They got to get
absolutely.
You got to get you. With that being said, Wilton Jackson II, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Doc. Glad to be here. Like Charles said, went to Jack State's homecoming. It was a good time. Stayed out of trouble. Definitely, just to echo everybody, definitely still time to vote. Voted this morning around like 9:30, 10 o'clock. So it wasn't so bad, but I'm sure it might be some lines now, but don't get out of line because we need everybody to get out and vote. Good
stuff. Great comments by everybody involved. Today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THD Agency, LLC. THD Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. Wilton, I'm glad you didn't get into trouble because that's unlike Mike. Charles, he waves back and forth. Sometimes he's into trouble and sometimes he's not. So, yeah, it is what it is. With that being said, I'm going to start with you, Wilton, since you didn't get any trouble. What's on your mind with some of the news of the day?
So I'll get into some of the SWAC football weekly honors. The Southwestern Athletic Conference tabbed Southern's Xavier Set, Alabama State's Rico Dozier, Texas Southern's Shanzavia Lewis, and Florida A&M's Daniel Richardson for SWAC football weekly honors for this week. Offensively, Set threw for a conference high 294 yards versus Alabama A&M on Saturday as he completed passes to 9 different receivers to go along with 3 touchdown passes on the day. He also added 59 rushing yards off 6 carries. Defensively, Dozier recorded 19 tackles, highlighted by 12 solo stops during the 21-17 win over Alcorn State on Saturday. He also posted 2 of Alabama State's 6 sacks with a quarterback hurry. From the specialist standpoint, Lewis was spectacular for the Tigers special teams unit this past Saturday versus FAMU. He recorded 6 returns for 230 yards, including a 90-yard touchdown return. As far as the SWAC newcomer, Richardson orchestrated the Rattlers' high-powered offense, throwing for 267 yards and 5 touchdowns. He also completed an impressive 75.8% of his passes, connecting with multiple targets.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Kudos to the SWAC. Let me go to you, Charles. What's on your mind in terms of news of the day?
Sure, let's take a look at the MEAC weekly honors presented by Coca-Cola. Howard's quarterback Deshaun Scroggins, as well as fellow Bison Robert Jones. Scroggins was the offensive player of the week. Jones was the defensive player of the week, while Morgan State kickers Sire Bundima was the rookie of the week, while South Carolina State's Cam Johnson and Kyle Gallegos earned offensive lineman and specialist of the week honors. So let's take a look at Deshaun Scroggins. He threw for 304 yards. He was 24-41 with 4 touchdowns and Howard's 38-0 win over Delaware State. Scroggins also added 6 yards on 8 carries with 1 rushing touchdown. His teammate Jones, he secured 2 interceptions and 2 pass breakups in the 38-0 win over Delaware State. Specialist of the week, Bundima, great story. First time kicking this past weekend, recorded his first 2 collegiate field goals and an overtime win against Norfolk State. He connected on a 35-yard field goal to send the game into overtime with a 47-yard field goal. He also averaged 54.1 yards on 7 kickoffs, and he completed 2 of 3 with regards to his points after touchdowns. Break out the syrup for Cam Johnson. Big guy, 6'4", 300-pounder. He registered a blocking grade of 90% with four pancake blocks as the Bulldogs accumulated, 469 offensive yards in the 24-21 win over North Carolina Central. And then Kyle Gallegos, he collected 316 yards on 5 kickoffs with 2 touchbacks. He also added a 20-yard field goal that gave the Bulldogs the game's first points in their win over North Carolina Central. And those are your MEAC players of the week.
Good stuff for the SWAC MEAC. Mike, what's on your mind?
So I'm going to talk a little bit of soccer because it involves 2 of my alma maters. So I don't know if you caught the news, but I know we're talking about football and we're really headed into that part of that season. But Texas Southern soccer made history. If you caught the SWAC titles or if you caught the social media jargon or news outlets, and by winning the SWAC regular season title, Texas Southern overcame a 1-0 first half deficit to make history as the Tigers clinched the 2024 SWAC soccer regular season championship for the first time in school history with a 4-1 win Friday over the Prairie View A&M University Panthers. So bittersweet mixture for me because I have a degree from both institutions. So TSU obviously put pressure on the Panthers early on with 4 shots within the first 15 minutes. However, Prairie View A&M struck first with an early goal in the 18th minute. The tide would change along with the momentum of the game in the 37th minute as the TSU free kick bounced off the goalie and junior Jacqueline Russ was there to tap it in for the first 1-1 tie. Early in the second half, TSU senior Victoria Pucci stole the ball from PVAMU defender and stormed down the field as she found Russ for her second goal of the night and a 2-1 lead. Late in the match, sophomore Rayel Henderson emerged after a scramble in the box and scored a goal along with senior Mercy Lawson in the 88th minute. So congratulations to TSU. Bittersweet, as I mentioned. I have allegiances to both schools, but congratulations and hats off to Texas Southern, the Texas Southern women's soccer team. So,
well done, Big Mike. Well done, Big Mike. Sharing the love there. Well, since we're talking about regular season championship go to Texas Southern, that means it's time for the tournament. So SWAC announces soccer tournament seedings and quarterfinal matchups. And guess what? First round, Texas Southern faces off again against Prairie View as a 1 versus 8 seed. That's at 10 a.m. starting Thursday morning. That's November the 7th. And as you stated, it is in Prairie View. Match 2 would be number 4 versus number 5, which is Alabama A&M in the 4 seed. The number 5 seed is Jackson State. Then at the match 3 is at 4 o'clock. The one previous at 1 o'clock scheduled to begin. One at 4 o'clock is number 2 versus number 7. That is Grambling State, the 2 seed, and the 7 seed is Mississippi Valley State. At match 4, which is at 7 p.m., features 3 versus 6, which is Southern versus number 6 Alabama State. So that's your matchups. It will be on the SWAC Digital Network. You can buy tickets at the website in regards to those that are going to watch the game. Be able to watch the game live, particularly starting with the quarterfinals. You have your semifinals, obviously, that Friday, and your championship comes on that Sunday as you get a day of rest in there or rain out to be able to reschedule those games. So fascinating to see how that looks. I want to give a little love to the MEAC. We talked about TSU on the men's side winning cross country. In the MEAC, you had Norfolk State doing the double-double. The men won their 5th consecutive track championship, while the women went back-to-back. So pretty big-time things going on in the MEAC with Norfolk State and the men's and women's cross-country getting it done on those races. So starting to be championship season. We're creeping on along what that means, and we have some big implications coming up in terms of, if you would, the SIAC and CIAA, as we have the last week of games scheduled before the championship. We'll get into that as we release the poll in the next segment. But also, just intrigued about some of these matchups going on here. We have HBCU Go matching up with Monumental Sports Network partners for 5 local universities for robust 24-25 college basketball schedule. It'll be fascinating to see what that looks like in terms of some of the games out of that greater DMV area. That would include some matchups both at the SWAC, MEAC. You have all types of games in that area about what that will look like. So fascinating to see what that comes on. And then you have the announcements, which is a little sad in terms of this. The Division II, which is the HBCU football game, won't happen this year. That was previously known as the Florida Beach Bowl. 1 year after popping up in the HBCU football scene, the Florida Beach Bowl has been put on ice. Bowl game between the CIAA and SIAC, 2 HBCU Division II conference, will not take place in 2024. Sources for each conference confirmed the HBCU game day. Sources indicate that the funding was an issue as the bowl looked to build on its inaugural game. The inaugural game was held last year in Fort Lauderdale at the DRV-PNK Stadium on December 13th. The good news is, from my sources, there are some other considerations for another bowl maybe popping up next year or the following year that feature the champions of the SI and CIAA. Remember, in the regular season, as things kick off in the Black College Hall of Fame, there's been an agreement that the champions of this year will face off and kick off things in that bowl game classic, if you would, next year. But this year, there will not be a bowl game featuring members of the CIAA and SIAC. So it'll be fascinating to kind of see how things go from that point. With that being said, let's take our first break, come back on the other side, and talk about the release of week number 9 for the mid-major top 7 and see what these 3 gentlemen say about the poll rankings. Then it'll be time to talk about some key matchups, big matchups this weekend featuring top 7, top 10 teams, if you would. Some of them just out of it, but a lot of implications going on for this championship game. Things could not be easier, but we'll see if that's the case or not. With that, we'll take our first break and come back on the other side.
At AutoMasters LLC, our mission is to serve our community by providing quality automobiles at affordable prices. All of our vehicles are inspected and certified to offer you the confidence in knowing you have a quality vehicle. Our goal is to provide you with a seamless process and positive experience for your automobile purchase. Financing recommendations and specific vehicle inquiries are available at your request. You can find us at www.automasters06.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Also, please feel free to contact Terrence Miles at 601-927-7794. And oh yeah, tell him Sonia sent you.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
The Kuyo Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Kuyo.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with the professors. We got Professor Washington, Professor Jackson II, and Professor Bishop. It's time to release the polls. It's time to release the mid-major poll rankings, top 7. Let's see what everybody thinks in terms of what took place here. You know how we do it. We're going to start with those teams dropping out. Dropping out this week. Tuskegee Golden Tigers had a tough loss as they dropped out of the polls, 5-4, 5-2. They lost to Clark Atlanta. Panthers, who got a big win at home to close out the home streak as they continue their winning ways this year. Big win by Clark Panthers, but a tough loss from Tuskegee. Also dropping out this week is the Langston Lions, 5-3, 4-2. They had a big matchup as they were trying to stay in the race, not to be done as they are in the Sooner Athletic Conference. Let's look at some of those teams receiving votes. We'll look at the next 3 outside of the top 7 for a total of 10 teams. Just look at it. Receiving votes, West Virginia State Yellow Jackets, as they got back to their winning ways. They are 6-3, 5-2. You also have Florida Memorial Lions, 5-2 and 1, 4-1 as they got a big win. They play as they try to size up things for their shot at a championship. They have a big matchup this weekend. We also have Tuskegee Golden Tigers, 5-4, 5-2. Tigers are just outside, looking in the top 7 with 111 points, as you see. With that being said, let's get in the top 7. Top 7, we have Fort Valley State Wildcats, 6-3, 6-1, 122 points as they were not ranked, but they jump in the top 7 after all season. They're playing some really good football, which is setting up for their shot at a title in the SIAC, but they have their rivalry game against Albany State before they can see if they can make that happen. Bringing us to number 6, Clark Atlanta Panthers, 5-2-1, 4-2. They need a little help as they try to get into the SIAC championship game. But they stand at number 6 now, 135 points, and remain at number 6. Bringing us to number 5, Winston-Salem State Rams. They drop a spot this week as they are 6-3, 4-2, 139 points, but they remain in the top 7 as they are outside of what looks like to be the CIAA picture. With that being said, let's get into number 4, who is squarely in the mix. That is Virginia State Trojan, 6-3, 5-1. They have crept all the way back into the contention, and they jump in the poll this week at number 4 with 147 points. And now they have a big matchup to see if they can stay within the mix and even chase a CIAA championship. With that being said, let's look at the top 3 teams. At number 3, you have the Miles Golden Bears, 7-2, 7-0, 2 first place votes. So they add a first place vote this weekend, 164 points, and they remain at number 3. Bringing us to number 2, Johnson C. Smith, Golden Bulls. Everybody's heard by now they had the upset this past weekend to Fayetteville State. They fall from the number 1 ranking and previously undefeated, as they are now 8-1, 5-1 in the CIAA. 3 first place vote, 167 points. With a win, they pretty much control their destiny and will be in the CIAA. With the loss, back to back, it can get real interesting. A team that looked like they were really controlling things, maybe not so much. With that being said, number 1, Virginia Union Panthers 7-2, 6-0. 4 first place votes, 194 points. They are previous ranked 2. They are now in the number 1 spot, and in a lot of ways they control the destiny, but things could get funky if Virginia State has other thoughts. With that being said, we do have the top 7 as you see it. Number 7, Fort Valley State Wildcats. At number 6, Clark Atlanta Panthers. At number 3, Winston-Salem State Rams. At number 4, Virginia State Trojans. At number 3, Miles Golden Bears. At number 2, Johnson C. Smith Golden Bulls. At number 1, Virginia Union Panthers. Charles, what do you say about the top 7?
I was really curious to see how far Johnson C. Smith would fall, especially after the big loss to Fayetteville State. But in retrospect, I think we're right. I think we're right on, hit the nail on the head on this one in terms of when you take a look at how dominant the CIAA had been over the SIAC week to week. That was a bad loss, but I can't in good conscience drop them under Miles. Big win for Miles this past weekend, 37-3, but I still don't think it was enough to overcome overtaking Johnson C. Smith.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good points. That's a good point. So you would have kept Johnson C. Smith number 1, although they had that tough loss.
I keep them at number 2. I keep them at number 2. I think they dropped from number 1 number 2, but I think Virginia Union is definitely number 1 team in the
so you do agree
major.
with that part of it. All right. With that being said, let me go to you, Mike, and get your thoughts in terms of the top 7.
So I think you got it right with Johnson C. Smith. I was surprised. You said upset. That was a convincing victory from what I saw, at least score wise. You can make an argument that Fort Valley should be higher. They've won 4 of the last 5 in convincing fashion. So you could make, to me, they had a 3-point loss at the very beginning of the season, I think against Clark Atlanta, but you still can make a loss at this point in the season that, they're a little higher than to me, Winston-Salem or Clark Atlanta. I don't know where Johnson C. Smith fall. I would agree that they don't fall too far because of the dominance of the CIAA, and their conference. So I with the first whatever, I would say, I would think though that Miles and Johnson C. Smith. So I would have Johnson C. Smith at 3 and Miles at number 2. And look at how Miles has played. So that's those are the only tweaks or arguments from my perspective that you could make. Otherwise, I think you got it. Fort Valley, whether they finish out or not, they have Albany. Let me make sure I say that right. I don't want to hear no mess behind it. They have Albany State. So the Low Country Bowl will be cooking up. We'll see what happens with that one. So those are just my thoughts.
Good points. Good points. So where did you say you ultimately would have Miles Golden Bear?
I said I would switch Miles and Johnson Smith. I would have them at number 2.
Okay, so you would drop Johnson all the way to 3.
Yes.
That's interesting in terms of that, because you could argue that Miles Golden Bear is red hot. But I like the way Charles
7 in a row. Yeah.
Yes.
I like the way Charles put it in terms of looking at the collective with the CIAA going undefeated against the SIC. It's interesting to see where Wilton, if he will split the vote and tell us his final thoughts, or will he go in a whole different direction? Wilton, what are your thoughts in terms of the top 7?
So I'm gonna start with the top 3. I'm okay. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little hesitant about dropping Johnson C. Smith, although I know they lost. I said to myself, they lost, but I'm gonna still drop them no less than 2. So I'm okay with Virginia Union being number 1, Johnson C. Smith being number 2, and Miles, even with the 7-game win streak, I would put them at number 3. Now, when it gets to that number 4 and 5, I think I would switch Virginia State with Winston-Salem. I had Winston-Salem. I think Winston-Salem should be number 4, and I think number 5 should be Virginia State. And then I would also switch, kind of to Mike's point, bring Fort Valley up maybe one notch to number 6, and then put Clark Atlanta at number 7. And I think the reason being for that is I'm still looking at that loss to Clark Atlanta, that loss to Savannah State. That loss really hurt. And obviously, Savannah State have they got another additional win as well. So I'm looking at that like that loss by Clark Atlanta, I think would put them up under Fort Valley.
And Winston-Salem does have the head-to-head over Virginia State.
Yep.
The good point there. I guess you're looking at conference overall losses, but head-to-head matches. Speaking of head-to-head matches, what have Fort Valley State and Clark Atlanta early in the season? So you know, at least you got to be consistent now. If you're gonna do it one way, you got to do it both ways. Y'all like to think y'all catch somebody. I'm just saying.
Peer pressure, hell, lady.
Pressure bust pipes.
Oh God!
So again, Wilton, you keeping Johnson C. Smith, the Golden Bulls, at 2. You don't have a problem with that. I like the fact that you said that you would consider keep them number 1. If you look at the voters, there are 3 first place votes. So there are actually 3 folks that did say that they look at the totality of the season, even though they had this late season loss, because they didn't hold it as against them as maybe some of the other voters did. So it's close. 4 first place votes versus 3. Because
here's the thing. So when I was looking at the wins and losses, okay, with Virginia Union, key wins they had Shaw, they had Winston-Salem State, and obviously SIAC's Kentucky State. Their key losses were to Hampton and Johnson C. Smith. And with Johnson C. Smith, they got a win over Tuskegee, Virginia Union, Virginia State, Shaw, Winston-Salem, and they lost to who? Last year's champion in Fayetteville State, right? So it's just like, when you think about that, even though they lost this time around, I think more so what really made me decide to put them down at number 2 was the fact of how they lost. Like, it was not they didn't even score. It was a shutout.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that was a huge deciding factor for me to put them at number 2 as opposed to letting them stay at number 1.
Yeah, I think you make great points when you talk about not just the loss, but the way you lost, in particular.
And at home.
Shutout.
Yeah,
at home, yeah. So I can see why those 4 voters was like no, and then you had some voters, decide that hey, I know CIAA has dominated the SIAC, but they like what Miles doing, as Charles says, 7 in a row, and they've done it in pretty much dominant fashion, and they've had a win over a top 17. They beat Clark Atlanta Panthers on the road in Atlanta, which was a huge win at the time. One of their losses is to a Alabama State team that, despite quarterback concerns, has showed you that they know how to get off the mat. They've won defensively. I'm interested in that. Before we get into some of these matchups, I want to shout out to AD Drew. The regional rankings have just come out, so I want to give you that update live here. This is the regional rankings, and obviously we're looking at Super Region 2 that features the HBCUs outside of West Virginia who are not in the ranking in their region. But at number 10, and I'm going to give you both the HBCUs and the historically white colleges. At number 10, you have West Florida that sits at 6-2. Number 9, you have your SIAC. Miles comes in, the Golden Bears at 7-1. Number 8, you have Lenore Ryan at 7-2. And number 7, check this out. Winston-Salem State at 6-2. So the dominance of non-conference has gotten, to me, some love for the CIAA. Because you jump back in there, you get at number 6, you get Virginia Union at 7-1. At number 5, you have Carson Newman, 7-1. At number 4, you have your Johnson C. Smith. After a tough loss, they probably dropped from 1, likely all the way down to 4. At number 3, you have Valdosta State that's undefeated, which is intriguing to me. They're undefeated, but not higher than that. You have number 2, West Alabama at 7-1. You have Wingate at 7-1. So fascinating to see there when you talk about the top 7. If all stays the same, as AD Drew reminds us, if all stays the same, instead of Winston-Salem State getting in, which would be fascinating, you actually would have Miles that would bump out Winston-Salem State in the framework that you have. So we find a way to get the love just so instead of the CIAA getting 3 in, you still get 3 HBCUs, but you get 2 from the CIAA and 1 from the SIC if things stand accordingly. Basically, let's say everybody wins out. That's what would happen. Winston-Salem State essentially would get both.
You mean somebody's willing to incur the wrath of Rams Nation?
That's just how the rules set up. I don't think they
That's how the game is played.
Yeah. Remember, as we're used to following the FCS level for a while, you had automatic bids if your season ended before the playoffs begin at the Division I FCS level. The Division II, you have what you call automatic qualifiers. You got to be in your region. You finish top 6, you're automatically in. But they take 7 teams, and where it gets interesting at number 7. If there's a conference that is not in the top 6, but they're in the top 10, then they can bump out the lowest ranked team, which in this case would be 7, which would be Winston-Salem State. So great information. Great. Thank you for sharing that, AD Drew, timely, and appreciate you continue to do what you do. Obviously watching the show. You have a big weekend. I'm going to shout you out in terms of Clark Atlanta and Morehouse, the Battle of the Cats, as he is putting in a lot of information. As it looks like that may be picked up on the TV. I don't want to put it out there until they officially release it, but you should be able to see that game as things working feverishly, as Drew was going to make sure that game was going to be televised for both programs and coaches and ADs involved. So he's making it happen, and it's already worth every penny that they're paying him in terms of what he can get done. With that being said, let's take our second break. We'll come back on the other side and give you the chance to talk about some of those matchups that will feature these top 7 teams. And more importantly, they're going to go a long way to see who will play the following week in the championship game. Based on your discussion there, I might get your ideas and suggestions and get everybody out there listening as we'll do a little tease. If there was a bowl game that featured a champion against the SIAC and the CIAA, would you want to see it played the following week, or would you try to push it back some? So kind of get that thoughts going as we take our next break, come back on the other side. We'll get into matchups, and then we'll do a little daydream ourselves after we come back after this break.
Choice Hotels is a family of brands that helps you get the most for your money so you can be any traveler you want to be.
You could be a free hot breakfast hero at a comfort hotel. Yes! That's how you waffle!
Mister, this script got a plot twist at a Radisson hotel.
A business big leaguer.
Go for key.
Even the ultimate pool float inflator.
With 22 brands and the best value for your money, Choice Hotels has a stay for any you. Book direct at choicehotels.com, where travels come true.
Gotta get the corners.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Shout out to WSSU Ram Nation as he's celebrating the Rams ranked number 7. I wonder what he thought after I talked about them getting bumped. Potentially. That being said, I want to shout out to J Mac in terms of seeing him at the tailgate. It was great. In terms of FAMU, as I got a chance to get down there and celebrate homecoming with all the gentlemen down there. It was good information in terms of what that looks like. That was fascinating to see all those involved. Much love. Kelvin Rozier obviously gave great hospitality. I like his setup, man, right there at the entrance. Doesn't meet anybody. The main entrance in front as you get to go up to the media section, but AD Suggs was wonderful in terms of how she represented. I got to see her Friday as we had a little impromptu chance to meet the SGA, the two athletic directors, 2 board members, chairs of each institution, and little old Dean Cavil had a chance to be there in the mix. So, I was excited that I get to partake in an opportunity like that. So shout out to FAMU again in terms of how they represented on many different ways, even though they didn't have to do my Tigers like that, but that's all right.
Yeah, they did.
As we're saying, make sure you vote and staying in those lines. For those that cast your votes, appreciate you doing your duties as we talked about it a long time. With that being said, Go ahead, Mike.
Now, you say, little old Cavil, but I'll take the opportunity to give you your kudos. If you're on LinkedIn or any other thing, you may have seen a picture of what looks like Frederick Douglass's grandson in one deep. He is on a book, episode 220. Twins Talk It Up, the leadership and business of college athletes. I joke, and I always joke, but kudos to him because you're talking with a man with 25, 30 years of expertise. It was good to see you shine, Dr. Cavil, on LinkedIn and several other pages, to see you on the front page of that episode and that book, part 1, The Leadership and Business of College Athletics by Dr. J. Kenyatta Cavil. It is a podcast. You can, go on Apple Podcasts. I urge you to check it out, but great to honor, one of my colleagues, fraternity brothers, friends, and yes, believe it or not, roommate at one time. So, the stories will come later. So,
yeah, I was getting real nervous there, and I can't pay you enough for that, Mike, but I appreciate you.
But congratulations to you, Dr. Cavil.
Congratulations. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate that from all of you all. Let's get in that first matchup. Let's just hit it off with the big one. We got number 1. The new number 1 ranked team is at Virginia State. They hit the road again. Last time they were up in the rankings, hit the road, it didn't go as well. But this time it's against the rival. They got the best of them last year and the last couple of years. But now Virginia Union Panthers that sit at 7-2, 6-0. They're at number 4 Virginia State Trojans, 6-3 and 5-1. And essentially, this is a semifinal matchup for the CIAA championship game. You win this, you're basically in. If not, you got Virginia State. You certainly out. It looks like it. A couple of things may go their way that have to fall out. Virginia State wins. Virginia Union wins, and they certainly know that they're in. With that being said, Mike, what are your thoughts in terms of this Virginia Union Panthers matchup against the Trojans, 1 versus 4?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head to really start it off by calling this is really in essence a playoff game. And you look at the one that concerns me is that, if you look at, Virginia State, they're on a 4-game winning streak. Virginia Union's on a 6-game winning streak. And ironically enough, you have the number 1 and 2 offense in the CIAA against the number 1 and 2 defense. Virginia Union's the number 1 offense, 47.1 points a game. Virginia State, 31. And then both teams are allowing a little over 13 points per game, in terms of defense. So it's a classic battle between tops in the division. The other thing is, and if you look at statistics, and I'm a stats guy, you look at rushing, and you look at who's at the head, who's running things, and you see really the same two teams rushing. So you see Virginia Union, they're 260 yards a game in rushing, whereas Virginia State is 160. So you have one juggernaut of an offense, and the same goes for passing. I can go through the statistics, but if you look at offensively, you got to say Virginia Union has a slight edge. 6-game winning streak. You look at the point differential across 6 games, it's higher than any other team. You've got 1 versus 2 in all the statistics, and that's a playoff game. But you have to wonder if, this is Virginia Union, or have they really peaked this season, or are they still peaking? So those thoughts kind of jump out at me in this playoff game. The last point, and I'll make it quick, is where is this game going to be played? I'll let you think about it. Where's this game going to be played?
Virginia State.
Exactly. So now Virginia Union's got to take this.
Rogers Stadium, Petersburg, Virginia.
Yeah, exactly. They got to take this show on the road. So I give them the edge in statistics and momentum, but can they take this show on the road in a playoff environment?
Ooh, good question. Charles Bishop, what are your thoughts?
For me, this comes down to, I think we know the major players. When you talk about Jada Byers and Curtis Allen for Virginia Union, we know Virginia Union can score. So what I've been sitting here grappling with is how can Virginia State get this W? And this has to be the game of Romello Williams' life in terms of getting this win over Virginia Union. To me, it's got to be a duel between the quarterbacks because they're going to stack the box. In terms of trying to stop Jada Byers. So Virginia State has to get off with that passing game and create some opportunities to try to get this win at home. I think they can pull it off. I'm going to go with Virginia State in this one.
I like that WSSU Rams, as he's talking about this matchup, that both teams went 1-2 against what was formerly the Southern Division. The Southern Division is tough in terms of what it looks like, but it'll be amazing in terms of the playoff picture, just how strong the Southern Division will play out. Will they be able to capture a championship after such a great regular season, or will the top team in what was the Northern Division continue to do what they've seemed to do against the Southern Division, or what was? Wilton Jackson, with that being said, tell me your thoughts on this 1 versus 4 matchup. Number 1 goes on the road. Can they just have risen to the top? Can they protect it to have their seat in the CIAA championship game?
Dr. Cavil, I won't go into the stats too much because Charles and Mike kind of already did that, but I actually think that they can. I'm gonna be the difference in this conversation. I think that they'll get this win on the road. Obviously, Charles, you mentioned coming down to will Virginia State be able to stop Jada Byers in their offense, and of course the dual matches between quarterbacks. But one thing that I've probably been leaning on a lot more in deciding these factors in teams is like as when you're playing football, you're going to be able to move the ball in most cases down the field. But when that field gets tighter in the red zone, who's going to be able to stop who? And when I looked at that, Virginia Union is number 1 in red. Well, let me say this. Red zone offense, both of them are 2 and 3. Virginia State and Virginia Union. But in red zone defense, Virginia Union is number 1 and Virginia State is number 8.
Yeah.
So I know stats go up and down depending on who you're playing and things like that. But I'm going to give my edge to Virginia Union and getting this win on the road and punching the ticket to the CIAA.
Great point there, Wilson. Shout out to Brian as he sneaks and slides in the back of the classroom. He says he's surprised. He don't know if he wants to call Mike at the board. He don't know if he want to move him from to a guest lecturer. Man, what? Oh, man. Brian says by 2 touchdowns, Jada Byers touchdowns for specifically. Betting man, so y'all can bet on that. If he tells you, think twice about it. You can use some of your gas money, maybe. Let's go to the SIAC, talk about another rivalry matchup. This one will feature the 7th team in the poll, team just sitting in it. Then you have a team that is outside of the top 10. Essentially at number 11, you have number 7 Fort Valley State Wildcats 6-3, 6-1. At number 11, Albany State Golden Rams in the Fountain City Classic. in terms of this matchup. Golden Rams sit at 5-4, 5-2, while Fort Valley State is sitting at 6-3, 6-1, and they're chasing that other seat to be able to play Miles, as Miles has locked everything up. They're in the championship game, but there's some teams fighting to see who can get in the SIC championship game to fight fast against Miles in terms of that. Now, Miles still had a little work to do to make sure, as they want to host the championship game, things could follow away depending on who it is, the matchup. They might find themselves on the road. So they are in the SIC championship game. With that being said, I'm going to start with you, Wilton, on this matchup. Let's move on out of the CIAA and travel south. SIAC matchup, big-time classic here, big-time rivalry game. Albany State just had a follow rivalry game against Savannah State, and they lost that one. Can they get things going and find themselves back in the SIAC championship game like last year where things got really weird, or will they just have some pride and find a way to get it done and get the Wildcats checking that box as they try to move forward?
You know, Dr. Cavil, this is a really evenly matched game too. You're talking about a team, when you're looking at these teams, they're both number 1, number 2 in scoring offense. Fort Valley is number 3 in scoring defense. And you look at a lot of other statistical categories, they're evenly matched. Even when it comes down to, teams getting sacks on opposing teams. You're talking about Fort Valley is first in sacks allowed and first in total sacks. Albany, is second in total sacks. So I think a lot of this is going to come down to this. Will the Golden Rams be able to stop Brandon Marshall? Mm-hmm. Will, in terms of the battle of the quarterbacks between Isaiah Knowles and Kevin Durham, who's going to get the better duel of that? And which defense is going to be most critical in being able to get a stop in this particular game? So I think that's what it's really going to come down to. But I noticed something before. Fort Valley, if I'm not mistaken, has lost 8 out of the last 10 matchups in this game.
Yep.
So I think that this might be the year where the streak ends.
Good one.
Whoa, say that again, Wilson.
I said this might be the year the streak ends, meaning Fort Valley will be Albany State.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah, I see folks giving some rest to this classic talking about Griffin talking about it's for second place again. Wow. Hey. Charles, go ahead. What are your thoughts in terms of this matchup in Georgia?
My gut is telling me Fort Valley. I mean, they won 5 out of their last 6, and they haven't scored less than 30 points in 5 out of the last 6. I mean, they really put up some points. Albany, they're able to put up some points as well. But it's something about that hangover to me to Savannah State. I expect Fort Valley to get the win and Kevin Durham to show out.
Good stuff. With that being said, Mike, let me get you in here and get your thoughts on this top matchup between the Georgia teams. You got to get this one right. Folks going to be looking at you if you don't get your talking points in on it.
Yeah. My wife and father-in-law and my father-in-law will be at that game. When I lived in Georgia, I went to this game. This is a small little, I'd call classic. And I agree with all of the points. I think one stat stands out. I think Milton hit on it. Defense. I think Fort Valley is allowing 50, they're number 1, basically. They're allowing very few, yardage, very little yardage, very, few points, against their opponent. And then number 2 is Albany. And then you look at offensively, Fort Valley is still number 2, right up behind Miles in scoring offense. This game will be in Columbus. If you look at the history going back not only 8-9 years, but going back 10-15 years from when I lived there, right now, Albany State, Albany. Let me make sure I say this right. Albany State has the advantage, but I think the momentum this year goes to Fort Valley. And I don't say that just because of statistics. I think if you look at, the point game margin, you look at how they're coming into this game, they're on a roll. So I give the edge to Fort Valley this year with the victory. For all of the reasons that CB and that Milton said statistically, but I think they're coming in with an edge. So I'll leave it there. But this will be a classic. This will be 2 juggernauts, and and make no bones about it. This will be a battle between 2 very good defenses.
Good stuff. Let me sneak one more in here. We'll stay in the SIC, and we'll take the break, and we'll come back and talk about some of the other key matchups. But this one also features two top teams. It looked like it could be a matchup for the championship game, but that's not quite what it is. But it's still a big one. It's in Alabama. That's number 3 Miles Golden Bears, 7-2 at 7-0. They're at Tuskegee, which essentially is number 10. The Golden Tigers sit at 5-4, 5-2. Is this even a game, Charles?
You know, for all the historic implications that's going on at Tuskegee, I want it to be a game, but no, mine's
the lights.
Yeah. They turn on the lights later on that evening.
Will it be lights in celebration or lights in terms of sorrow?
Teddy Pendergrass turn off the lights. I think the Golden Bears, they're going to be able to handle the Golden Tigers in this one. I'm going to take Miles.
Mike?
I mean, I like the fact it's really sweet that you tossed this one up for some commentary, but no, this will be Miles. I mean, it's in Tuskegee. They're going to turn off the lights. They're going to have some great, stuff, but this will be Miles.
Wilton.
Now, didn't we say these same lights gonna be on during a daytime game?
During a daytime game.
I just want to make sure I remember that from Sunday.
You gotta push the game back. You gotta play it under the lights.
Yeah,
I think we said that, but I'm just putting that out there. But no, seriously, when I looked at this game, it was a couple stats I thought about. When I looked at like Miles being 4th in pass defense and Tuskegee being 12th in pass defense, also Miles being tied for 2nd in sacks. I definitely think Miles' defense is going to get all up in Tuskegee's offensive line in this game, and I don't think it's going to be too pretty. Like, for those that ain't watched Miles' defense like that, even just looking at last week what they did, I think this is going to be a game that I don't want to say it's going to be a blowout, but I think it has the potential to get ugly if Tuskegee can't continue to score.
Could we see a Fayetteville State, Johnson C. Smith sort of game? Is there any chance for Tuskegee?
Miles be caught looking ahead? You wouldn't think so. It's a rivalry matchup. But
I don't think so.
I don't know because of the rivalry. Because
you could. For rivalries, you have to throw records out. I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that. But I'll say this: like I was looking to it in red zone offense, Tuskegee is number 1. But again, they going up against a stout defense when Miles.
Don't get me wrong. I think Tuskegee will win convincingly, but the rivalry has somewhat of a
Miles.
Yeah.
You said Tuskegee.
I was like, well,
I'm sorry. I mean Miles, but okay. I think there's somewhat of a small X factor, but I think Miles will definitely, Yeah.
This Foul City Class AK, who wants to beat Miles next? Okay. Hey, with that, we'll say this. We'll get into our last break. We'll come back on the other side and talk about a couple of key matchups.
Yeah, I'm not going on record for that.
Other top 7 teams have big matchups. We'll talk about those and give them their due before we call it a night. Stick with us. Back after our last break.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
Hey, grab me one too.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with the professors. We're going to go ahead and put the professor on Mike's name. He's here today. With that being said, we're going to look at three of the teams in the top 7. They play teams outside of the top 10 and sometimes rivalry games, depending on how you see it. But I want to get your thoughts. These look like they will be all overwhelming matches, but a couple of these teams on the road. We got number 2 Johnson C. Smith Golden Bulls sit at 8-1, 5-1. We just talked about the tough loss they had. They're at Livingstone, the Blueberries, who've had a solid season. They sit at 5-4, 3-3 in the conference race. That's one I want you to consider. The other one features the Winston-Salem State Rams that we just talked about, sitting at number 7 in the region. They need this win to hold steady, and then maybe some things can fall apart above them and they can solidly get in. But with that being said, they have Fayetteville State, the Broncos, that just had the big win, sit at 4-4, 3-3, coming into town. So I'm interested in that. That's number 5, Winston-Salem State Ram. And then you have number 6, Clark Atlanta Panthers do go on the road, 6-2-1, 5-2. At Morehouse, the Maroon Tigers sit at 1-8, 1-5. Of those three, I imagine what you're going to say, but any of them that you kind of key that could be an upset, and if so, which one you're looking at and why? Starting with you, Wilton Jackson, what way are you going with those three matchups?
Well, when I look at Clark and Morehouse, I know it's a rivalry, and you're talking about going around the corner, but I don't really see that going how upset or anything like that. I think that's just going to be Clark. When I look at the Johnson C. Smith Livingstone, I think this is going to be a Johnson C. Smith team that comes out obviously wired to get revenge of losing last week. So for me, I think more than anything, that Winston-Salem State and Fayetteville State game could be something. Considering Winston-Salem State has lost the last 4 matchups against Fayetteville State, that's definitely one I'll have my eye on to see if Fayetteville State can continue this momentum after coming out that Johnson C. Smith win.
Big stuff. Charles?
I'm going to pay attention to Fayetteville State and Winston-Salem State. I mean, can Joe Owens have another standout performance like he had against Johnson C. Smith? That's, I think that's one of those things to keep an eye on. But everybody else should be chalk. I expect Clark to take care of Morehouse handily. And what was the other one? Johnson C. Smith?
You had Johnson C. Smith at Livingston Blueberries.
Ooh. I don't expect Johnson C. Smith to have a hangover, so I'll go with the Golden Bulls. I think they'll keep things going.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to play Johnson C. Smith after a loss.
Yeah.
I agree with that one.
I think Johnson C. Smith will be on one. So that's the only one I'm really looking at. I think with Morehouse and Clark and that isn't Stephen A. and First State gonna be there.
Yep, they will.
Yeah, that's Friday. Yep, so they'll be there. Unfortunately, they should have picked another game, but I think Clark rolls in that one. But yeah, I think that'll be it for me. It'll be interesting to see what Fayetteville State does as well.
Yeah,
see
how they even so.
We're listening to you, Mike. We're laughing at Ed getting ugly around here, pushing on Chris Durrod after he talked about earlier. Can TC Tate beat Eddie Robb again? He's like, no. So we're gonna talk about more of those on Thursday, but I got a couple more games I want to get your thoughts on. These NIA programs, we're gonna share them some love. Langston is probably outside of the race, but they have an interesting as they go on the road in Fort Worth at the Crawley ISD Multipurpose Stadium in Fort Worth, Texas. Essentially, number 12 Langston Lions, if you would. Well, actually 13 in the total rankings. Langston Lions come in at 5-3, 4-2 after a tough loss. After winning a couple of games, 4 or 5 in a row, get going. But they take on an 8-0 and 6-0 team in the NIA and the Sooner Athletic Conference. But you have Florida Memorial that just sit at 5-2 and 1 and 4-1 in conference. More importantly, they take on the Kessler Falcons that are 7-4-0. They take on undefeated teams. Both of them are undefeated in conference. Can either one of these HBCUs get the victory? I think you're probably thinking about the Florida Memorial Lions, but just wanted to give a little love at the NIA level as Florida Memorial is essentially sitting at 12, Langston at 13 in the total poll ranking. Wilton, any thoughts in terms of this matchup? Does either one of them have a chance with the upset?
If I had to pick one that could potentially get it, I would probably take my chances on Florida Memorial.
Mike, you feeling the same way?
Florida Memorial. Langston's got what, Texas Wesleyan and Funky Town. For those of you that are not from Texas, that's the nickname of Fort Worth, Funky Town. They got Texas Wesleyan. I don't see that happening. So if anybody has a chance, it's Florida Memorial.
Charles, I see you shaking your head. Same thoughts.
Yeah, let me make it unanimous. I'll go Florida Memorial on this one.
All right. With that being said, just think about this scenario. If you were going to have a championship that kind of modeled the MEAC SWAC championship game in the Celebration Bowl, it featured a game at SIAC CIAA. So, this is your final week of the season. Next week will be championship game. Then you get into the following week where you get into that, or would you stretch it out and go into that Thanksgiving Friday to try to create a big matchup where you have the Turkey Day, Thursday, Friday championship game, television-driven weekend. Folks can make plans, and then the Bayou Classic on Saturday, or do you play it early? What are your thoughts in terms of the timing if you were going to do that? When would you set it up and watch, Charles?
I love that. I love that thought in terms of snuggling in between the Turkey Day Classic and the Bayou Classic. And that would be a fun one to give you a Friday something to watch there for your HBCU fans. So there you have a Thursday, Friday, Saturday of smorgasbord of Thanksgiving games, holiday games, if you will. And gosh, it would be fun to see a Golden Bulls, Golden Bears matchup.
Yep, good stuff. That would be interesting. Golden Bulls and Golden Bears, two golden champions. Yes, yes, indeed. Let me go to you, Big Mike. What are your thoughts in terms of that matchup and then the timing? Would you like to see it the following week, a full week? Or you like 2 weeks preparation, trying to snuggle it in within the Turkey Day weekend? Or do you like to see it before that?
No, I'd be a fan for snuggling it in or placing it in between the Turkey Day Classic and the Bayou Classic. I think it gives families a time. It gives you travel time. You got 3 games back to back, as Charles alluded to. I always like the idea of having that in near a holiday, as well as you can get families involved. You could plan your travel. So to me, that comes across way more appealing. You're not pressed for travel. So to me, that's more appealing on a broad basis than, doing it earlier.
Wilton, let me go to you, Wilton Jackson, a second. I'm going to let you finish it up and give your thoughts in terms of, is this something you'd like to see? You think it'd work out? Do you see the value in it? And then more importantly, would you like to see it scheduled?
Oh, I definitely would love to see it. I think HBCU fans would get a lot from this game too, just as they get from the MEAC SWAC championship with the Celebration Bowl. I also love the fact of putting it in together with the other classics in that week too. Because one thing that we as HBCU fans we love to watch a group of games, especially a group of good games during the holiday. It gives us something to do. You may be doing your Thanksgiving shopping that week for Christmas. After you get that done in the morning or what have you, and then maybe a mid-afternoon game, maybe about 2 or 3 o'clock, you got some of that shopping done, whether you're doing it in person or at a mall. You can go to the game, or it's a good slate of games just during the holiday season. Everybody's around, good camaraderie. Why not be combine that camaraderie with some good football? So I think it would be good for the HBCU landscape.
Now you could push it back the following week, which gives more time of setting up things, which would be essentially a SWAC championship. The concern you have that now you're going in the championship weekend though.
Yeah.
Right? And you have all the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Big 12 championship, SWAC championship, not to mention the G5 championship, whether it's the MEAC Conference USA, if you would, as well as the American. And I guess we got the Mountain West before it's reconfigured in terms of it moving around. So with that, me adding in that mix, does that change your mind any, or are you staying with the weekend that you kind of agreed upon previously? Go ahead, Charles.
I mean, if you pushed it back, would you consider a Tuesday or a Wednesday?
I don't think people would want to tune in on a Tuesday or Wednesday.
I don't see mass appeal on a Tuesday or Wednesday.
Nope. I can assure you, even when we get into FBS Bowl season, when all these games get started after Celebration Bowl, how many times do we see the numbers of the watchability rates for some of these games on a random Monday at noon or a random Tuesday or Wednesday? Yeah. Nobody's watching these games.
Yeah.
Then you also have to think about some of these players, not necessarily per se on the FCS level, but FBS level that opt out, that make these games even more boring. So if you take those factors and consider, putting our games on a random Monday and Tuesday, I just think we'll be missing out.
Yep, I think you shoot yourself in the foot. So
yeah, I think
well said. What Milton said for me. Cheers, Milton.
I'm about to give me a glass of wine.
I think that lets us know it's time. We're getting into Mike's drinking time, getting into Charles's eating time. And we do have to close things up. With that being said, great dialogue, great information, and great thought process. That's why I wanted to bring it to you. On Thursday, we'll get in and talk about some of these major division games of the week. We'll mix in maybe some secondary thoughts of some of these mid-major games that we didn't finish up today in regards to if we have additional guests to give us their thoughts on some of those mid-majors. With that being said, for all those that voted, appreciate you doing your duties, particularly the HBCU programs out there that have went in heavy to support in multiple ways. And then shout out to Howard, as they will have the headquarters for the election watch party. So I'm excited for that for them. In terms of those, I know there were some concerns about how they had to clear everything up, but I think from the broader picture, the fact that she went going full circle is a major statement. So get a chance to pull that off. Appreciate everybody that did that and did that thing, as we like to say, and that is vote. Again, those that are in line, make sure you hold your place and do what you need to do to make sure you cast your votes. Thank you for listening inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share your podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, and Wilton Jackson II. Again, want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, and Sunday at 9 o'clock a.m. as we give you your major division release and talk about all the big matchups that weekend. That's Saturday. Boy, it'll be interesting going down the stretch. One thing, if you're not careful, though, I don't know if people really realize, depending how things fall out this weekend, you could actually have essentially the MEAC locked up and the Eastern and Western Division locked up after this weekend if a couple of teams get some key wins and a couple of balanced key losses. And we could start talking about this representative for the MEAC in the Celebration Bowl and the SWAC championship matchup. That's fascinating how we did all this juggling and it could come up that early. I'll say this. I already have my stuff booked. I'll leave it at that because I don't want to jinx anybody. I don't want to get these two gentlemen mad at me. I won't even say their names. We'll leave it at that. But my trip plans booked. I'll switch it if necessary, but I booked it.
Smart move.
Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, Cavil, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm always trying to make sure I balance the budget and do my thing early to get the best rates, as they said. I call it Twitter because I can. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube is on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Mike?
Lecture.
Wilton?
Dismissed.